Hello, I'm Howard Wimshurst. I'm quitting Flash and I'm going to explain how and why. But first, thank you to the people who are currently sponsoring this channel on Patreon. They are getting exclusive extra video content as well as early access to videos which come out on this channel. They get downloads and lots more cool perks. If you want to help keep this channel going, please consider supporting me on Patreon. It's very quick and easy, and you can pledge an amount of your choosing every 2 weeks, and you can stop at any time. So what you see me making in this time lapse is a practice piece of character animation. I chose to draw the character of Mowgli from the Jungle Book. I have always liked the appeal of how this character was drawn. I thought it would be fun to animate the character to some dialogue from a different source, something to create a sort of comedic effect. So in this case, I chose a guy called Robert Frank. I think his channel is called Robert Frank 615 if you want to check him out. I find this guy to be a hilarious caricature of like a gym bro who's kind of your stereotypical steroid user. And I figured that would be a good comedic contrast to the character design of Mowgli. So here's what the initial keyframes look like. This is like my first pass, and caution, he does shout and get quite loud, so you might want to turn your volume down, and he gets quite rude. So,
and then you're gonna say, oh, what if I don't want to be 200 pounds? I don't want to be 200 pounds. What adult male does not want to be 200 pounds? Someone has to explain that to me.
So basically the method I'm using for this animation, it goes like this. I already had the audio sorted out. I edited the audio so it's ready to animate. I made a lot of observational drawings of Mowgli based on the designs made by Milt Kahl, and he's one of the greatest animators to have ever lived, by the way, so I really recommend that you check out all of his work. You can find a lot of his work on the Living Lines library, and I'll try and remember to link that in the description. I made a lot of annotations and observations to these sketches, and I worked my way along the clip and added in keyframes at the different syllables and the different points of emphasis in the dialogue. And then I went back through and noticed a lot of places where I could improve it. So I just took a few hours to refine the key poses that I had drawn, and my personal principle is that the keyframes should work kind of by themselves to effectively communicate what happens with the character before any other frames are added in between. And this is very important for if you were to hand your work off to, say, an in-betweener or something. You would want to make sure that they could just follow your drawings and not mess up the animation too much. Also, it just makes it clear to everyone what's happening, and it makes it clear to yourself as well, so that you can then embellish what you've got. Anyway, now a transition back to why I quit Flash. Lately I've been thinking about my career as a creative, and the industry has, to be honest, it's mostly moved on from Flash. Flash is used very much in educational practice, so people who are learning animation are still using Flash. That's very common, and I do believe that's partly because Flash has a very shallow learning curve. It's very easy to pick up and it's very intuitive, so it is actually a very good first software to learn animation on, in my opinion. But the industry itself has mostly moved on from Flash. Commercial 2D animation in Europe appears to mostly involve Photoshop, Toon Boom and TV Paint as the main front runners. And I want to be more versatile, and I want to be able to collaborate with more people as I work with studios and other animators. Flash has always had one huge weakness, which they've never really fixed, and that is their extremely limited brush. The brush is by far the most important tool for an animation software, and the brush has barely improved since the software was first conceived. And for what I pay, that's simply not good enough. All of my animations up until now have been characterized. unintentionally by this recognizable Flash brush. So you can tell that it's been made in Flash, and I want to get my aesthetic as close as I can to the look of traditional animation. And it's hard for me to do that continuing in Flash. On top of that, the Adobe Creative Cloud subscription is pretty expensive. Over time, it amounts to a lot more money that you would pay, rather than paying for a one-off license for a different software or for an older version of the software. So, if you're going to be having a career in animation, that kind of makes sense, because otherwise it will just be draining your account all the time. There are a few other issues as well. I mean, there are problems with the software. Flash does crash quite routinely for me, and it also doesn't work properly. Well, the version that I was using doesn't work properly on my new Cintiq, which is an issue. And as far as I can tell, the Adobe just hasn't bothered to fix it, which is just a really poor show, As you can tell by the time-lapse playing, I've chosen to switch to TV Paint, or TV Paint. I don't know how you would pronounce it, but I chose TV Paint, and the number one reason is that TV Paint is the most suitable software that I can see for the kind of work that I want to do. And that is traditional animation, which resembles your sort of analog traditional animation that you would create on a light box. A lot of animators and artists who I greatly admire are also using TV Paint, so that's kind of another thing that pushed me into using TV Paint. I also tried out Toon Boom, and while it is a very good software, it's very advanced, I personally didn't like it because I felt like it was overcomplicating everything, and it was kind of unnecessary. Like, animation doesn't need to be so complex, and it doesn't need to have all of these kind of, well, to me, they're kind of useless, these extra tools. Really, all you need is to just lock down a very intuitive and well thought out timeline interface and excellent brushes. That's two things that TV Paint do really well. My first impressions of TV Paint. On the first day I sat down with it, I was quickly able to create some character animation, plotting out my keyframes and making adjustments. And this is a really good sign. It shows that the software is intuitive, because I was able to pick it up very quickly. The fact that almost all of the keys, tools and functions have programmable hotkeys as well, that's really nice, because it lets me set up my keyboard shortcuts to resemble Flash. So it makes the transition a lot smoother for me. There is one big drawback that I can see with using TV Paint. To use TV Paint, you must use this dongle. It is basically like a USB stick, and the software doesn't work without it. But it's actually worse than that. The dongle is your license. So if you lose your dongle, you lose your license. And this thing is very small and very easy to lose. I lose USB sticks all the time, so this really scares me that I'm going to lose it. I've taken a few precautions. There is a short range beeper on there. In case I lose it within my room, I can just press the remote and it will make a noise, so I can find it that way. And I've also written my contact information on there and a message stating that whoever returns the lost dongle to me will be rewarded. I'm also thinking of swapping out the beeper for a long-range tracking chip, just to make absolutely certain that I can find it all the time. All in all, would I recommend switching from Flash to TV Paint? It's far too early for me to tell completely. I mean, this is my first time using TV Paint, so it's just my first impression. If you're like me and you want to get closer to the standards of the European commercial animation industry, then I probably would at this stage recommend that you switch over from Flash. I'll be phasing out Flash from my channel gradually over the course of this year. Of course, I can't switch over instantly because all of the projects I've been working on, they've been done in Flash, so I'll be working in Flash for the time being. If you're a subscriber of the channel, I hope that this change doesn't mean that you're put off by the videos. This channel has never really been about the software. It's all about the craft of animation and the wider craft of filmmaking and art. This video will be one of the only videos that I really make on the software for the foreseeable future. I don't really enjoy talking about software. To me, it's just a tool. It would be like a painter talking about his paintbrush all the time. You know, the paintbrush is so arbitrary in comparison to the mind of the artist and what the artist is actually, you know, what the artist's ideas are. I will end this video with some advice. If you are serious about taking animation as a career, I would seriously recommend looking into purchasing one-off licenses for things. So these are things that you buy them once and that's the end of it. So Adobe used to have one-off licenses until they changed to subscriptions. To buy their old licenses is really hard. They have basically made it very difficult to find their old products. But if you can find them, if you can get your hands on them, it would be worth purchasing one of them legitimately. You know, these monthly subscriptions, they really do add up over time. Over your whole career, you will end up paying a lot of money for them. Also, with a subscription, you never really own the software. If for whatever reason at any point you have a problem with your finances or there's a problem with your bank account, suddenly you just wake up one day and you don't have software. So, you know, that's not really a good thing. It doesn't feel safe to me. Whereas if you buy it one-off, you actually that's your software that you can work with. I want you to remember that overall, what software you use cannot compare to how important the role of craft, creativity, and observation are. They are the most important things. And so yeah, this isn't really a big deal, but I thought I'd make a video about it and just updating you guys, because you will start seeing me work in TV Paint more often. So that does it for this video. Once again, shout out to all my Patreon supporters, and yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.